What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and today we're going to be breaking down a $900,000 pot that was played in short deck no limit hold'em between Tom Dwan and Andrew Robl. But before we jump into this hand from the Triton Poker Super High Roller Cash game, let's get a couple of things out of the way when it comes to short deck no limit. Short deck no limit is similar to no limit hold'em, but it's a little bit different. The deck has had the deuces through fives all removed, so you can only be dealt a six through an ace, and additionally there are a couple hand ranking changes. For starters, three of a kind beats a straight because straights are now much more likely, and flushes beat full houses because it's a little bit harder to hit a flush, being that now there are less cards in the deck that can make your flush, but you're still holding two of the suit. I have heard of rules being a little bit different from place to place, so if you are playing short deck, make sure to clarify what the rules are. But those are going to be the rules in play in today's hand. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the action.
So Robl and Tom Dwan have taken chips off of the table. As you can see, their chips have shrunk a bit. Doesn't mean they lost the chips. They just want to play with shorter stacks. Action on Nikita Badze-Kalski with ace-8 offsuit, going to try and steal these chips. Sees a bunch of weakness in front of him. Shouldn't see Robl go anywhere. He's got 9-8 suited. The good thing about hands like 9-8 is that your opponent usually isn't raising a hand like ace-8 on the button. He is in this case. But usually your cards are live. Your opponents will be expected to raise hands like ace-king, ace-queen, king-queen, queen-jack. So your 9-8 is just usually live. Tom Dwan, king-jack suited. Gonna make a call.
Once you get first person in the hood, everybody's happy.
So it's going to be four-way to the flop.
It's a short deck, right?
Our hand begins with a little bit of a different pre-flop structure. Everyone has to ante 3,000 and the button ante 6,000. Now, this is in Korean won, so we're converting into a rough estimate of what that's like in US dollars. Because in short deck, equities run closer together, meaning weaker hands have more chance to win against stronger ones, you're in a bit of an interesting spot here pre-flop because there's a lot of money in the middle and you only have to call $3,000 in order to take a flop that's going to have, possibly something in the vicinity of 30 to 40,000 bucks. This is what kicks off an avalanche of calling into the pot. We see Robl completing with 9-8 suited. We see Tom Dwan completing with king-jack suited. We see Elton Sang completing with ace-7 suited. We see Jason Kuhn completing with ace-10 offsuit. And then on the button, ace-8 offsuit, which is probably the ugliest looking hand of the bunch, decides to bump it up and make it 36,000 to go. Actually, apparently the Korean won's exchange rate has changed lately, so this is $31,000 to go. I'm just going to say these bet sizes in one. This raise is a little bit of a weird one from the button. Now, Fish 2013 is a great player, and I'm sure he's got his reasons for why he wants to raise this, but it strikes me as an odd decision. We have plenty of stronger aces that we could use. We might want to raise with some hands that have a little more playability. And yeah, it's possible that having a flush blocker in this game is more important because when you have the nut flush blocker and flushes beat boats, well, that removal is more important. But I still think I'd probably prefer to see a check. But regardless, he bumps it up to 36 million. With the pot now raised up to 36 million, action gets back over to Robl, who decides to call with 9-8 suited. I'm not totally sure what I think about this pre-flop play just to limp and then call. It can't be that bad. Certainly the first call is going to be making money. I'm not sure if this is the kind of hand you might want to mix into a raise range. It seems likely to me you'd want to put it in there, but it's possible in this game this hand is a bit too weak to be wanting to get in the mix. Now over to Tom Dwan with king-jack suited. Same type of situation. I wouldn't have hated to see a raise pre-flop, but once you are in here, definitely going to have to make the call, which he does. Now over to Elton, suited ace. Seems like a mandatory call. He makes the call, and the only person that folds the raise is Jakun here with his ace-10. And I think that maybe Jakun's logic is something about, his hand's not going to have a lot of playability here. He's going to be quite dominated by the raise range of Fish 2013 and the button, unless, of course, he's got ace-8, and, what are the chances of that? Anyway, we've got 4 players. Let's take a flop.
Robl with a 9-high flush draw. Tom Dwan with trip king, gonna check. Wadzikowski with just ace high and the ace high backdoor flush draw. Backdoor flush draw isn't that strong in this game because it's very hard to make the flush.
The flop comes king, king 10, and paired boards, at least initially to me, seem like they work a bit different in this game type. On a paired board in No Limit Hold'em, there are way more hands that have not flopped 3 of a kind, whereas in short deck, there's a much higher chance that someone has trips. So these boards, particularly multi-way, probably aren't quite as good to bluff in this format as it would be in regular No Limit Hold'em. We do have a couple players that connected with the flop. Tom Dwan out in the lead here with 3 of a kind, and Robl with his flush draw has a good chunk of equity. Action checks to fish in the button, and now he could maybe decide to bet here, particularly when he blocks the nut flush draw, but he decides to play on the conservative side and just check it back. I think either way would be a reasonable choice. If you start betting all your hands on the flop in this format, it's probably a bit too much. So I like the decision to give up here, particularly with, some backdoor playability, but maybe not quite enough equity to bet the flop. I say that, but I'm almost convincing myself otherwise. I think about it more. Would we rather have the ace of clubs or a straight draw? Well, a straight draw is dead against a king, so those hands are probably hands you might want to check back too. So maybe this would be a reasonable flop bet. I'm not entirely sure. Welcome to Poker Hands. He does decide to check back, and let's take a turn.
He is going to check it back. So Robl makes a 9 high flush. Tom Dwan, a full house would not beat a flush in try and hold him, so Tom Dwan actually needs the case king. Wadzikowski actually turns the royal flush draw. Tom trying to decide, should he try and protect his hand? It's actually drawing very slim here. That's 90 million. So Robl with a very sneaky check there with the flush. Wadzikowski with a royal flush draw. Don't really see him going anywhere. He's just got so many outs. He doesn't know that 2 clubs are dead. Robl. He knows he's got the best hand. Just so unlikely his opponent is holding, there's not that many clubs left in the deck. Doesn't think Wadzikowski would raise a hand like ace-6 of clubs, or ace-7 of clubs probably, on the dealer button when it's a limp pot. So he'd really only be losing to ace-jack of clubs. Or pocket kings, but it just seems unlikely. So Robl's just trying to feign some weakness here. Wants to know if there's any value in raising. If he raises here, he really can make his opponent's fold hands are drawing dead, practically. He's also deciding, should he charge flush draw? He is good shove on
Nice,
here.
Robl. Love it. Such a monster Robl move.
Robl's trying to make it look like he's representing the ace of clubs, so that maybe he can get some crying calls.
The turn comes the Queen of Clubs, which is certainly an action card. Now, Fish 2013 picks up the nut flush draw as well as the gutter. Robl turns a flush, and Tom Dwan still has 3 of a kind. Robl checks again, and I'm not sure I totally love this check from Robl. I think I prefer just to bet and start to build this pot. Now, if you think the players behind you are splashy or likely to bet, then maybe you want to trap a bit more often. But I think I might even prefer to do that with a hand that's a little bit stronger. With a middling flush here, maybe even a lower end flush here, I think I'd prefer to go ahead and bet myself. This is where our hand starts to go off the rails a little bit, and Tom Dwan decides to bet the turn for 90 million. I don't think I'm a huge fan of this bet. Yeah, it makes some sense. You can get some value from possibly if an opponent has a worse king. Additionally, you could maybe get some value from a straight. But if I have a straight without a club, I'm just letting this go on the turn because you're dead against trips. So realistically, what hands are we expecting to get value from? Maybe a hand like ace, queen, ace of clubs could be realistic, maybe a couple of worse kings. But overall, this seems like it's likely a little bit too thin. Now, maybe you want to make some arguments that because we block flush draws from getting there from free, there's a little bit of upside to betting. That's certainly true. But we have plenty of other hands that we might want to bet. We could have full houses here. We could have flushes here. We could have maybe even a hand like ace king with the ace of clubs. There are plenty of other hands that might make a little more sense to bet than this one, but he does decide to bet anyway. This is where things get a little fun on the button for Fish 2013. He does have the nut flush draw, and so in this situation, not only does he have very good equity, even if his opponent does have a full house, he is drawing to the nuts. On top of it, he blocks his opponents from having the nuts too. So it's even better to float this spot in this particular game than it would be in regular no limit. He does decide to go ahead and make the call, which I like, and then the action gets over to Robl with his middling flush, or middle to lower end flush. And in this situation, it's kind of weird. If Robl check raises, he's essentially saying that he's got a very strong hand like a flush, or he's bluffing with a hand like the ace of clubs. But there's a little bit of an issue here, because when the button flats this bet from Tom Dwan, you've got to assume he's got the ace of clubs a good amount of the time. Let's just think about this. What kind of hands we want to raise in the button? Well, probably hands that have an ace more than any other card, because an ace is the strongest card in the deck. And then what kind of hands would call a turn? Most likely something with some river playability, and I can't help but feel like there are a lot of ace of clubs in Fish's button call range. This means that if Robl does decide to raise, he's saying that he's either got the ace of clubs or a flush, but he doesn't really have the ace of clubs nearly as much. However, this is also still a bit of a precarious spot. There can be some bad rivers for you. Now, it's not nearly as many bad rivers because full houses don't beat you, but a club would be a pretty terrible card, a king would be a terrible card, and maybe even a 10 or a queen that now double pairs the board, while not that likely because these players just limped in to call raise, could also potentially be something that Robl is worried about. There is a big upside to raising that I like though, which is in poker, the way you want to play most of your good hands is aggressively. Now, a lot of people at small stakes fall into one of two camps. They don't ever trap, or they trap way too much. And if you had to pick which side of the fence you were on, it's better to not trap. But the reality of the situation is you want to trap just an occasional hand or two to help protect your range. In general, you want to be betting and raising your good hands to make money. So in game types that maybe are less solved and people are less familiar and the players might be less able to see what hands mean or what ranges are like, it makes a lot of sense to play it aggressively, and Robl does, jamming it in here on the turn. Back to Tom Dwan, and there's not much to talk about. He loses to flushes, he loses to boats. Maybe his opponent could have the ace of clubs, but then that means the button had to flat without that card, which is not that likely. So in this situation in Tom Dwan's shoes, you simply gotta fold. There's not much to it. You lose to boats, you lose to flushes, and even though Robl's not representing a boat, the button could still have some, and so you have to be a little bit careful. So that's it for poker hands. I'm sure both players fold. I'll see you guys again soon.
Dwan also has to be worried about Bodzikowski behind him. If Dwan is up against a flush, he's in really bad shape.
It was not working. It was not working. Man.
Robl knows that his hand would look extremely strong if he had just called the turn as well. So that's why he does shove. Tom Dwan in the tank. He's got to be worried about Bodzikowski behind him. Bodzikowski can already have a hand like pocket queens, for example. He's also got to try to think of what bluffs Robl can have. Very tough spot for Dwan. Already almost 2 minutes into tank. It's a lot of chips in the middle. He still has one player to act behind him. So he needs to be really, really sure that his king jack is good here if he wants to make this call. It's not. It's only got 4% equity. I'm the one, king jack. About 3 minutes in the tank now. He makes the call.
Wait, what?
Tom Dwan in terrible shape.
哇，这个雪茄烟就拿过来。
Wadzikowski. He knows if he
他们想
hits
这么久，他们
a
想
flush,
他们专家。
he's drawing to the nuts. Wadzikowski lays it down. So Robl shows him the flush. Tom Dwan needs the king. Looks like they are going to run it twice.
Yeah.
嘿，拍开。
干嘛？他们吃你不怕？你看，啊？他们吃你不怕？
没有，没有。
Up to Robl. Going to run it one more time. Card is 10.
哎呦，
Dwan would make full house, but flush beats a full house in trying to hold him, so Robl is going to scoop the spot. Tom Dwan to belt it.
Cover.
Gonna have to top off.
但是反正跟 K 是一样的颜色吗？看一下，是不是一样的颜色？
Isn't that one against other one range? Not against other range.
Wait. 1 million more? 1 million more?
If you guys like this hand, you want to see more analysis of some short deck hold'em, hit the thumbs up button, and also let me know in the comments below if short deck hold'em is something you'd like to learn more about. Thanks for joining today, guys, and I'll see you again soon.